Mehbooba Mufti's narrative, picked up by the national media, international media, was that Hindus killed this girl because they wanted to drive out Muslims from Kathua district. Whereas the reality is just the very opposite. And what happened is that actually Hindus got impacted, Hindus were driven out from their homes and their villages, not a single Muslim. Their defying law is understandable because they never follow any law. In any case, हमारे देश का कोई भी कानून मुसलमानों पे तो चलता नहीं है. वो जो मानना चाहेंगे मानेंगे, नहीं मानना नहीं मानना. राजौरी, पुंछ एक्सेट्रा, एज यू नो, आए दिन वहाँ से कोई ना कोई टेरर अटैक की घटना होती है. अभी भी इवन दो देयर इज अ स्मॉल माइनॉरिटी लेफ्ट ऑफ हिंदूज, बट दे डोंट वांट इवन दोज लेफ्ट. दैट्स व्हाई देयर आर टारगेटेड किलिंग्स ऑफ हिंदूज in the Muslim majority districts of Jammu province, while the rest of the country Hindus keep sleeping. Kumbhakaran जैसे हम सोए रहते हैं, हमें याद पता भी नहीं. Majority of the districts of Jammu province have also now become Muslim majority, be it Ramban, the name itself Ramban indicates Hindu origins, today Muslim majority. Rajouri, Poonch, Doda, Kishtwar, all those districts bordering Kashmir Valley have already become Muslim majority. There are only 3 districts left, Udhampur, Samba and Kathua, which are still Hindu majority. And the same process has been ongoing there. And this murder of this girl, why have I called it The Girl from Kathua? My book is called The Girl from Kathua, victim, sacrificial victim of Ghazwa-e Hind. I'm sure you know Ghazwa-e Hind is a mission mandated upon all Muslims, which is to Islamize all of India. And we also know that People's Front of India has openly declared that by 2047, all of India is going to be converted to Islam. There are countless, hundreds of mini Pakistans already existing in India. In every city you will find many Pakistans, and in every district you will find many Pakistans where Hindus don't dare enter, where Indian police doesn't dare enter. But now we are talking about, they are openly talking about Islamizing the entire subcontinent. That's Mission Ghazwa-e-Hind. And I say with full confidence, even though a sessions judge has already convicted the 8 accused of having been murdered by Hindus, gang raped and murdered, I say with full confidence and with plentiful evidence that you will find in this book that these people had absolutely zero connection with her murder. They didn't even know she existed. It's her own people who have killed her. And I start off by saying, if you want to know the real killers, you have to start investigating, hand over the investigation to a national agency like the NIA, because it has deep national security implications, this murder and what happened after, and start by probing the role of Mehbooba Mufti, the girl's own family, and some PDP activists, if you want to get at the real killers. That's what I'm saying at the outset, but that's the conclusion of my book. Now, for those who may not remember, and Hindus usually have a short memory, we don't like to remember unpleasant things that happened to us. On January 10, 2018, a Muslim Bakarwal girl allegedly vanished from a home from near Rasana village in Kathua district. And on January 17, her dead body was found right behind in the backyard of Rasana village. Now it's important for you to know this village is actually a small hamlet of 16 households surrounded by forest land on all sides, and it is situated on the banks of a khad, a seasonal monsoon river, and a number of these seasonal monsoon rivers go and join a much larger monsoon river called khad, which by the time it reaches the Indo-Pakistan border, it's a vast expanse, almost like Yamuna or Ganga ka plain. It's that big. And that is the route through which a lot of Pakistani terrorist crossover. That is the route for drug smuggling. That's the route for also weapon smuggling into J&K. And Kathua happens to be a border district. Now her dead body is found in the backyard of Rasana village. And as soon as her dead body is found, once she disappears on January 10, there's no big activity, no protest, no gherav of police saying please find her. But the moment her dead body is discovered, suddenly the issue acquires global significance. Before I tell you why I think that the whole case is based on fake narrative, let me say it at the outset that a very corrupt judge who's already under investigation by the Punjab and Haryana High Court, namely Sessions Judge Tejwinder Singh, convicted 7 of the 8 accused on not just flimsy charges, but the entire evidence presented before him cried out loud that these people are innocent. The girl has been murdered by someone else. Sure, she was murdered, but certainly not by the 8 Hindus who were targeted as the killers and used to launch a very nasty, noxious defamation campaign against Hindus as fascists. Mehbooba Mufti's narrative, picked up by the national media, international media, was that Hindus killed this girl because they wanted to drive out Muslims from Kathua district. Whereas the reality is just the very opposite. And what happened is that actually Hindus got impacted. Hindus were driven out from their homes and their villages, not a single Muslim. In fact, today in this area, countless Rohingya and Bangladeshi Muslims have settled. More have joined. They are not fleeing. It's Hindus who are fleeing their villages and homes in many remaining Hindu majority districts of Jammu province, Rajouri, Poonch, etc. As you know, आए दिन वहाँ से कोई ना कोई टेरर अटैक की घटना होती है. अभी भी, even though there is a small minority left of Hindus, but they don't want even those left. That's why there are targeted killings of Hindus in the Muslim majority districts of Jammu province, while the rest of the country Hindus keep sleeping. कुंभकर्ण जैसे हम सोए रहते हैं, हमें याद पता भी नहीं. पर Judge Tejwinder Singh, I called him corrupt not because I am making such an allegation on account of my bias, but Punjab and Haryana High Court actually started investigation against him for high corruption charges and for misdemeanors unbecoming of a judge. So his chances of being elevated to the High Court are now finished. He was trying to become a High Court judge. And even before that, several years ago, High Court had passed similar strictures against his criminal acts. So if a highly compromised judge convicts these people, one has good reason to believe that he did a good job. Now I want to explain to you why I got suspicious about the genuineness of this case while sitting in Delhi. I'm sure you all know our law in most countries, Europe, America, makes it illegal to mention by name a rape victim, especially if she's a small girl. Even after her death, you can be sent to prison for 2 years and fined up to maybe 50,000 rupees. Despite the existence of this law, which is fairly stringent in its application when the government wants to be stringent about it, I was very intrigued by finding that leading journalists in India, activists, lawyers, all were naming the girl and publishing her photograph. So, how come this happened despite the law? And the extent of making her name and face globally famous can be gauged by the fact that when on 22nd April 2023, just recently, I googled justice for naming this girl. I don't name her because the law says I should not. So I have called her, in my book I call her Ghazwa victim. I never say her real name. But when I put her name, Justice for, the campaign was titled that, you won't believe it, I got in 42 seconds 4 crore 35 lakh results in English language alone. 4 crore 35 lakhs, that's a lot. In Marathi, in Tamil, in French, in German, you will find also the same hashtag in their languages. Now contrast that with other cases. Not a single rape victim in India or anywhere else is known by her name or face. You remember the famous Nirbhaya case? Till date, nobody knows her real name. Till date, nobody has seen her picture, even though it also led to a lot of global publicity. So, how come, I asked myself, that this girl's face and name has become globally famous? Who's managing this global narrative in a manner that people are organizing demonstrations with a picture, justice for naming her, her photograph, her name everywhere? I've hidden it even in these posters, lest the courts go after me, but not after the real offenders of this law. Almost all articles, reports and videos that appear in Google search carry her photograph and carry her name. So, this defiance of law, interestingly I found, was started by Mehbooba Mufti herself, the CM of J&K. Now, she cannot say she didn't know about this law. So, clearly she did it deliberately. She was leading the narrative, and then she also made sure that countless journalists were spoon-fed her narrative, the narrative that she, not alone, but at the behest of Pakistan and her jihadi comrades, she was unleashing this narrative. Now, it started also with Greater Kashmir. You can understand Greater Kashmir, which is an openly pro-Pakistan paper. So, their defying law is understandable because they never follow any law. In any case, हमारे देश का कोई भी कानून मुसलमानों पे तो चलता नहीं है. वो जो मानना चाहेंगे मानेंगे, नहीं मानना नहीं मानना. तो ग्रेटर कश्मीर कर ले तो बात समझ आती है. But then Bollywood stars, cricketers, fashion models, all of them, you may remember, stood with placards. I'm ashamed, I'm Hindustani, Asifa, naming the girl, wanting death sentence for her rapist, naming Hindu temple, and all kinds of very negative comments against Hindu community of Jammu, or Hindus in general, their temple and their rituals, and wanting death sentence even before the trial had started. Now, these are not people who get excited about social issues every day, who managed not just Bollywood stars, Tamil stars, Telugu stars, chief ministers of many states, especially Congress-ruled states, who was managing this narrative, from Javed Akhtar to Akshay Kumar to Anupam Kher. How were they all brought in, roped in, I asked myself, to create this global echo chamber? And then I discovered through my Google research that the key megaphones used by Mehbooba Mufti are these serial offenders: Barkha Dutt, Nidhi Razdan, Rajdeep Sardesai, Sagrika Ghosh, Rahul Pandita, Sameer Yasir, and sadly enough, even Aarti Tikku. Aarti Tikku was smarter. She didn't name, but she ran a very noxious campaign against Hindus of Jammu and echoing Mehbooba Mufti's narrative. Now, my book is divided into 4 parts. Section 1 gives you the background, and also it analyzes in great depth the charge sheet, the nonsensical charge sheet, and I will briefly touch upon why I call the charge sheet itself a bizarre legal document. If anybody read it with even half a mind, they would know that the case is totally fake. So first section is about the charge sheet, analysis in detail. Second section is about all those people who helped create the fake narrative in order to target Hindu community. Not just the 8 persons who were targeted as the rapists and killers, but Hindu community in general. So second section is that. Third section analyzes in great detail the utterly nonsensical judgment, dishonest judgment of the Sessions Court. Right now the case is being heard in the High Court of Punjab and Haryana, and we hope to intervene soon to demand a fresh investigation. So you see section 2, Barkha Dutt's tweets, Nidhi Razdan's furious tweets, Rahul Pandita's tweets, Sagrika Ghosh and Rajdeep Sardesai, their tweets. They're talking, 10 tweets a day as if their heart was bleeding, they can't sleep for the sake of this girl. The even BBC report. Now BBC is well aware, because even in England the law says you can't name a rape victim and certainly not publish a photograph. When BBC article also has a big photograph on the front page and also names her, her family is also identified, she is also identified. Naturally, I knew that a global mafia was behind it. Then Wikipedia. You try searching the name of any other rape victim, you will not find in Wikipedia. But Wikipedia also has her photograph and has immortalized her by her name. I have screenshots of all these published in the book. Now, how come the court slept when this was happening? On April 13, High Court fined 10 newspapers, 10 lakhs each, for publishing a name and a photograph. But given how many crores a newspaper makes by publishing fake narratives, nobody bothered. And that's why even as recent as April 23, you find 4 crore 35 lakh references to her, articles, videos on her name. Supreme Court also remained indifferent, though in December 2018, in response to a petition, they did pass an order that a rape victim ought not to be identified by name, but they took no action. No, not one person was sent to jail. Not one person was given the penal punishment that they deserve. So nobody even removed their articles or their tweets till date. They continue because court slept. Now the other question I asked myself was, how is it that these people sitting in Delhi, who perhaps never even knew, I don't think Barkha Dutt had ever heard of Kathua or certainly not Rasana village. How come they're taking so much interest in this case? What is so special about this girl, considering that in Delhi alone, every year 6,000 girls and boys disappear every year. 6,000 children. Nobody knows what happens to them. Most of them are girls. So they've never bothered, right under their nose, they've never bothered about children disappearing in Delhi. But one girl disappearing and then found murdered in one remote village of a district they knew nothing about, and they never even went to that district. How come they became so excited about it, since they've never campaigned about any children disappearing or dying? Considering Kathua is 530 kilometers from Delhi and Jammu is 600 kilometers. And it is very important to remember, none of them ever stepped into Jammu or Kathua to talk to the parties concerned. A journalist's main job is to listen to all sides of a case and report on various dimensions that are coming through in the public domain from various sides. They never bothered to talk to the families of the accused. They never bothered to talk to all those people who were saying this is a false case. Now, had it been that Jammu kept silent, I could understand them not going to Jammu or Kathua and listening to the voices of protest. But Jammu rose in fury when the second charge sheet was filed on April 10. There were 2 charge sheets. First was filed in January itself, and then a revised charge sheet was filed in April 10. And between January 17, when a dead body was found, on January 18, the police had arrested a young boy, a teenager, 17-year-old teenager called Shubham Sangra. They arrested him and said, "Oh, we've cracked the case. He has confessed to having raped and killed her." And they did this on the strength of torture while he was in police custody. Immediately they tortured this young boy and made him say, "Yes, I murdered her in this way, I raped her here, I raped her there, whatever." And they said, "Oh, we've cracked the case." But no, this young boy was arrested not with a view to actually finding the guilty. He was arrested with a view to finding the weakest link in the chain. So they tortured him and they made him name 7 others. Whether he even named them is not clear, because the entire evidence in JNK, those of you who don't know, the police writes in Urdu. And this boy, knows not a word of Urdu script. So he had no idea what they were making him sign on. And under torture, they made him confess to a lot of things and implicate 7 others. The second charge sheet was equally absurd. And between January 18, when they arrest the first boy, and April 10, when they filed the revised charge sheet implicating 8, Mehbooba Mufti government had run amok. She had unleashed a reign of terror, arrested hundreds of young men arbitrarily without any evidence that they had the remotest connection with this murder or even knew about this girl. And the terror was so severe that people from many villages left their homes and took shelter on the national highway. They were too afraid to stay in their villages, because most Jammu villages are small and surrounded by forest land, and therefore they were particularly vulnerable. Now, Jammu lawyers, Jammu civil society, traders, because they all became aware how hundreds were being arrested. The Jammu High Court Bar Association president gave a call for Jammu Bandh on the very next day that the charge sheet was filed. And all of Jammu shut down. All of Jammu shut down in response to this call. Massive demonstrations were organized by a newly formed multi-party platform, namely Hindu Ekta Manch, which brought together people from all political parties, Hindus from all political parties, Panthers Party, Congress, BJP, Samajwadis, all. And they all in one voice made only one demand, which is CBI probe. Please give us CBI probe. Mehbooba Mufti is targeting Hindus on fake charges. And as I said before, the reign of terror was such that hundreds and hundreds of people, these are small hamlets, took shelter. For example, this is a small view of a bigger dharna on Kuta Mode on National Highway in Kathua district, where these women are sitting. They're not going back to their villages, they're so afraid, and demanding CBI probe. And Mehbooba Mufti cracked down on these protesters by imposing Section 144. Now these are winter months, and yet people are sitting out in the open, sleeping in the temple or in a school nearby. And she wouldn't even let them be there. Section 144, arrest from even there. There was real reign of terror. And which is, the reign of terror is what alerted Jammu lawyers. And as I mentioned before, Jammu Bar Association led this fight. And the chairperson of Jammu Bar Association, High Court Bar Association at the time, was this very respect-worthy old congressman named Sri B.S. Lathia. He had given his entire life working for the Congress party. But because his party behaved very badly on this issue, not only did he resign from the party, but he was shocked at the bad way in which the Jammu Bar Association was treated by the Delhi media. They all called them pro-rapist, Hindutwavadi, fascist, and he died a very heartbroken man at the way he was treated. Two senior former BJP ministers were made to resign simply because they led the protest. Chaudhry Lal Singh and Chandra Prakash Ganga. Again, they were only demanding CBI probe. They were not saying don't probe Hindus. They were saying let them be probed by CBI. But the High Command in Delhi, strangely enough, made these Hindu ministers resign, despite the fact that they commanded mass following at that time. For example, Chaudhry Lal Singh, one of the protest demonstrations in May, for example, that he led from his village in Katwa, he started with 500 people in the morning at 7:30 a.m. By the time he reached Jammu, in that hot month of May, he was walking barefoot. Nearly 50,000 people had collected at Jammu Satwaria Chowk. The point of making these, laboring on these points is this. If Jammu had kept quiet and the national media ignored, or the international media ignored, one can understand. Jammu was boiling in rage. And they were protesting not because these people were high and mighty figures. They were no ministers, they were not relatives of any governors or any heavyweight persons. Rasana residents and the 7 or 8 accused all come from very poor, modest families. Rasana, for example, somebody was an auto driver, somebody worked as a mill laborer in Bombay, somebody was a shop assistant in some Kiryana shop or chemist shop. In short, most of the Rasana residents were working class people. At best, 1 or 2 lower middle class is all that you can say. Now, why would all of Jammu province rise and protest to defend these people? Because it's not as if they were influential. They were not like this Ansari guy. Point is that they saw innocents were targeted and there was reign of terror unleashed. On the other hand, while people like Advocate Slathia were snubbed, defamed, abused, but this criminal called Talib Hussain, who actually led the narrative, who led the whole Justice for this Girl campaign, he has multiple criminal cases against him, attempt to murder, many rapes even of JNU students who thought he was a hero, rape of his sister-in-law. They've all filed cases. His wife had filed cases against him, domestic violence को लेके, और जम्मू यूनिवर्सिटी में अटेम्प्ट टू मर्डर उसके ऊपर केस थे और बहुत से केसेस हैं. पूरी लिस्ट है उसके केसेस की जो मैंने खंगाल के निकाली. और तालिब हुसैन के वाइफ और ससुराल ने उसके ऊपर केसेस किए हैं कि बीवी को मारता था, पीटता था, endangered her life. Brother-in-law also tried to rape her and stole all her jewelry, blackmailed them for money and left his wife because she produced 2 daughters, not sons. Now this man became the face for justice for Aspa campaign and he claimed to be a lawyer when he had no law degree. वो भी झूठ बोला. तो फिर भी Delhi media, Indira Jai Singh, all these high and mighty lawyers called him a human rights lawyer when he was a rapist, wife beater, murderer. I mean, any number of, and of course attached to the Hurriyat and PDP. So, now coming to very quickly the charge sheet. There's a lot more to be said about the manner in which the special investigative team first was appointed within 4 days. First SIT was displaced and second one appointed with a Burhan Wani who was accused of murdering a young Hindu man named Rishi Kumar of Doda district. He had tortured him to death while he was in police custody on trumped up charge. And when Rishi's family came to protest, Wani had detained Rishi's sister in the police station and raped her repeatedly for 6 days. He had other crimes also, so he was suspended from his job, dismissed and remained out of job for 12 long years. He also spent time in prison. But Mehbooba Mufti reinstated him surprisingly in 2017, and in 2018 made him in charge of the SIT that was to probe the Kathua murder case. Now, they arrested 232 people as witnesses but produced only 114 in court. सभी witnesses को torture किया और झूठे उनसे बयान लगाने की कोशिश की, परंतु बहुत से लोग नहीं झुके. अब रसाना विलेज मैंने कहा था, इसका जियोपॉलिटिकल इम्पोर्टेंस देख लीजिए. बॉर्डर से, पाकिस्तान बॉर्डर से 10-12 किलोमीटर दूर है सिर्फ, और ये खट जाते हैं, नाले जाते हैं जो सीधा पाकिस्तान के बॉर्डर के नाले से मिलते हैं. एंड दैट इज़ द फेवरेट रूट ऑफ मैनी टेररिस्ट. एंड सिंस दिस इज अ स्मॉल विलेज इन द मिडल ऑफ अ फॉरेस्ट, people who are doing cross-border terrorism, they come from Pakistan through the Khats. They wanted to vacate Rasana village because of its geopolitical importance, because from here, if there are no Hindu families and they can plant their Bangladeshi Muslims or whatever, then they have safe shelter points for terrorists. And from here you reach straight to Kashmir, going through the northern districts of Jammu province. So geopolitically it's a very important area, though it's a small, inconsequential sounding district. Most of us hadn't even heard of it. And it's very low crime. See, Jammu Hindu dominated villages have almost zero crime rate. And that's another thing that woke me up to the fact कि ऐसे क्राइम वहाँ होते ही नहीं हैं. जम्मू के हिंदुओं ने कभी किसी लड़की को अबडक्ट करके गैंगरेप किया हो, ये उनके संस्कार में है ही नहीं. एंड दीज आर वेरी वेरी नेग्लिजिबल क्राइम रेट, दिस थिंग, एक्सेप्ट फॉर ड्रग ट्रेडिंग दैट पाकिस्तान हैज़ ब्रॉट इन एंड क्राइम्स दैट आर कनेक्टेड विद ड्रग. नाउ लेट मी टेल यू अबाउट द एब्सर्डिटी इन द चार्जशीट. आप खुद तय करना कि क्या चार्जशीट की कोई सेंस बनती है. फर्स्ट चार्जशीट सेट, फर्स्ट पार्ट ऑफ द चार्जशीट विच रन्स इन टू फर्स्ट 3 pages of the full charge that this girl on April 10 was sent to graze horses. Now, which family sends 8-year-old girl to graze horses? But they apparently did. और इस लड़की ने रसाना गांव के पीछे आके आवाज़ दी, किसी ने मेरे घोड़े देखे, किसी ने मेरे घोड़े देखे, has anybody seen my horses? The first charge sheet says that Shubham says, come, I'll help you find. वो अपने छत पे बैठ रहा था. He comes down from the terrace, goes, then he roams around the forest with her for some hours, and they don't find the horses. And at 6:30 p.m. he says, okay, let me take you to my village. तो कहता है मेरे साथ गांव चलो. वो चल पड़ती है और गांव में ला के, ये छोटा सा गांव है, 15-16 घर हैं उस वक़्त, अब शायद 20 घर हो गए होंगे. ये काउ शेड है, टूटा फूटा दरवाज़ा है, broken door. Okay, it's not something with high security lock-up system or anything. And the charge sheet says he locked her up in this cow shed. She allowed herself to be locked up. He took a string from her salwar, her nara from the salwar. उसके साथ हाथ बांधे, एक छोटी रस्सी ली, उसके साथ पाँव बांधे, and he shoved a handkerchief in her mouth so that she doesn't scream. She doesn't try to call for help, she doesn't try to run away, and her own home, so-called home, if it was actually a home, was only maybe 6 minutes walk from Rasana village from this point, 6-7 minutes. She doesn't try to run, she doesn't try to call for help, she lies down happily in the month of January in this cattle cow shed. Now, does it sound real to you? Tell me. Does it sound real? Yes? Yes? No. More nonsense. Then every evening he used to bring her food, feed her from food that he stole from his house, along with Milky Way toffees, and then take her for a night walk, moonshine में walk के लिए जाता था, so that she can relieve herself, do susu and potty. And after she did her susu and potty, he would wash her private parts with his own hands very lovingly, and she allowed all that to happen. Does that make sense? She doesn't cry for help, she doesn't. 6 days he does that. Then after this, on the last day, 16th, he says, now I'm going to drop you home. So she says okay. She gets up, and on the way he decides to rape her. She resists, and then because she resists and then threatens कि I will tell my parents, मैं अपने माँ पिता को बता दूंगी तुमने मेरे साथ क्या किया है. So he gets scared. He's not scared 6 days keeping her captive. Nobody comes looking for her. And in that cowshed, every morning families used to come, do their milking of the animals, feeding of the animals. Nobody notices the girl. So when he threatens to rape her, she threatens that she will tell her parents. And he strangles her with her own chunni, her own dupatta, then takes a stone, hits her with her head, and leaves her dead body right there, and comes home, burns the nala, burns the handkerchief, but doesn't try to hide the body, cover the body, or at least throw the body at least 2 miles away from the house. No, right in the backyard. Now this is the first nonsensical story. But as I mentioned before, the point of arresting Shubham and cooking up this bakwas story was that they wanted to torture him to name some other targets. So within days or weeks, the narrative changes from cowshed story to मंदिर स्टोरी कि ये मंदिर में रेप हुआ, क्योंकि पूरा हिंदू कम्युनिटी को टारगेट करना था, एक दो को तंग नहीं करना था, पूरे हिंदू कम्युनिटी को टारगेट करना था. इसलिए द स्टोरी एंड सीन ऑफ क्राइम शिफ्ट्स टू द मंदिर. ऑल्सो you should know that as per law, any confession made while a person is under police custody is not admissible by way of evidence in any court of law. यानी टॉर्चर पुलिस कस्टडी में जो भी कन्फेशन किया जाता है किसी के द्वारा, वो एडमिसिबल एविडेंस इसलिए नहीं माना जाता क्योंकि जुडिशरी को मालूम है कि पुलिस टॉर्चर करके झूठे भी बयान लिखवा लेती है. परंतु इस केस में ये बड़ी नोटवर्दी बात है. इस केस में शुभम के बयान के अलावा while he was tortured in police custody, there is no other evidence the police has produced. In fact, the evidence that they tried to produce only proves the innocence of the 7 accused. तो मैंने जो कहा ठोक बजा के कि ये झूठा नैरेटिव है और ये इनोसेंट है, मैंने इसलिए नहीं कहा कि मैंने कोई स्टिंग ऑपरेशन किया. नो, आई एम सेइंग इट ऑन द स्ट्रेंथ ऑफ द नॉनसेंसिकल facts that were produced by the police. Utterly nonsensical narrative they created, and the lies they told, which are easy to blast lies. So it's their own records that prove that the police were doing a dirty job for Mehbooba Mufti. Now these are the 8 people. Sanjiram, a retired Patwari; Deepak Khajuria, a special police officer; Surinder Kumar, again special police officer; then Vishal Jangotra, son of Sanjiram; Parvesh Kumar, a teenager, another unconnected teenager; Anand Datta, sub-inspector or something; Tilak Raj, also in the police, head constable; or Shubham Sangra, the one who was arrested सबसे पहले. None of them had the slightest link with this. Now Mandir में बोला, the narrative that shifts to Mandir as the site of crime. This is the Mandir. Baba Kaliveer is the Kulu Devta of Dogra Hindus, very sacred deity. But since these are poor people, they have a very modest shrine. You can see this one room structure with windows that don't even have glass panes. You can peep inside any time of the day. There's nothing hidden, and it has 3 doors. Because it was jointly managed by 3 villages, and these 3 villagers kept key to 1 door each, so that they could come and do their daily rituals of puja whenever they felt like it. And the fact of the matter is, in such a building, mind you, and the location of this mandir is again 3 minutes walk from Rasana village, and it is no more than 5 minutes walk at the most from the house of this girl from Kathua who is supposed to have murdered. Now the second story is that this girl came looking for her horses. Shubham ran down. He also called Parvesh. We'll help you find. They roamed around the forest. They didn't find the horses. Then both tried to rape her. The girl tried to resist, but they forced some intoxicating tablet called manar, made of foul tobacco, down her throat. You can't swallow it without, God knows, half a glass of milk. You can't. It's so foul. But they put, and she passed out. They raped her, and then they brought her body and kept her in that temple, in that one-room temple, which is open to public. Anybody can walk in anytime. In fact, even her father and mother claim to have walked into this time. Now, the fact of the matter is, every day there are morning and evening rituals. दिया जलता है, पूजा होती है इस स्थान में. और ये लड़की के पेरेंट्स भी बोलते हैं कि जनवरी 11 को, बिफोर दे वेंट टू द पुलिस, दे वेंट टू आस्क सांजी राम, हमारी लड़की का टेवा बनाओ, बताओ, इज शी सेफ? एंड ही सेड यस यस शी इज सेफ. एंड दे merrily went back home. And interestingly, January 10, when she disappears, the FIR says that the father says she didn't come back. 4 p.m. the horses came back, but she didn't come back. So instead of looking for her, they waited. Then they thought she may be lying injured in the forest. तो बस ये सोच के सो गए. कोई माँ बाप ऐसे करते हैं कि आपकी बच्ची, अगर आपको लगता है शी मे बी इंजर्ड इन द फॉरेस्ट, लाइंग समवेयर इंजर्ड इन द फॉरेस्ट, you go to sleep merrily. Next morning, instead of going to the police, you go to Sanji Ram, who you say later on is your enemy, to ask whether the girl is safe. And they didn't notice that the girl's body was kept there, because after rape she is supposed to have been kept there. Then the story is that 8 people conspired, because Sanji Ram was the main mastermind. Sanji Ram ने क्यों इस लड़की को abduct करवाया? क्योंकि वो मुसलमानों को वहाँ से भगवाना चाहता था. Reality is, Muslims actually wanted Hindus out, and they succeeded. But this is typical what in Kashmir also, you would know, they blamed Kashmiri Pandits. They said Jagmohan took away Kashmiri Pandits so that they can bomb Kashmiri Muslims to death. ये बोला, ये ह्यूमन राइट्स नैरेटिव कश्मीरी मुस्लिम्स ये बताते थे कि कश्मीरी पंडित्स को जगमोहन ने इसलिए निकाल दिया ताकि आर्मी की बर्बरता मुसलमानों पे पूरी तरह से बरती जा सके. दे कैन इन्फ्लिक्ट ऑल काइंड्स ऑफ barbarities on us. So they present themselves as the victims while having driven out Kashmiri Hindus. They're doing the same thing here, blaming Sanji Ram and other Hindus of wanting to force Muslims out of the area, when the fact is they wanted to do to Hindus of Kathua what they had already done to Hindus of Kashmir, Rajouri, Poonch, etc. Now they say that Manar ke alawa she was fed this epilepsy drug to drug her, to put her to sleep, of 0.05 potency. एक तो अगर उसको सिलाना है तो उसको भांग देते, कोई स्लीपिंग पिल देते. Why would you give a epilepsy drug, and that too of a potency that doesn't exist? 0.5 तो मिलती है, एपिट्रिल 0.05 की मिलती नहीं. In any case, no epilepsy drug can keep a girl unconscious for 3-4 days while she is being gang raped. और वो उठती नहीं है एक बार भी. यहाँ तो उसको बांधा भी नहीं है. और ये कहते हैं कि जनवरी 11 को, नॉट सेटिस्फाइड विद हैविंग रेप्ड हर, दिस बॉय शुभम, ही कॉल्ड हिज फर्स्ट कज़न विशाल जंगोत्रा, हु वाज स्टडीइंग इन मुजफ्फरनगर नियर मेरठ in an agricultural college, giving exams at that time. He tells him, oh, we've got this girl, come, you also come fast if you want to, quote unquote, satisfy your lust. अगर आपको अपना लस्ट सेटिस्फाई करना है तो आ जाओ, हमने एक लड़की पकड़ी हुई है. और वो भी कहते हैं, पुलिस कहती है वो इम्तिहान छोड़ के भागा आ गया. कैसे आया? हेलीकॉप्टर से आया मुजफ्फरनगर से. कैसे सुबह पहुंच गया? सुबह 3-4 बजे रसाना गांव में. ये कोई बताता नहीं, कोई टिकट, कोई CCTV कैमरा फुटेज, स्टेशन पे कब उतरा, कुछ नहीं. पर आया और फिर आके भूल गया, 11 को आता है, पर 13 तक उसको याद नहीं रहता कि मैं तो रेप करने आया हूँ। फिर 13 को जो लोहड़ी का दिन है, ये फिर उसको रेप करते हैं। और इस वक्त उनके साथ दीपक खजूरिया भी पहले विशाल जंगोत्रा and Shubham raped the girl in the presence of Parvesh. Then they give her those tablets and they leave her lying under a table covered with daris. Now, this is the day of Lodi. Lodi, as you know, is celebrated in North India with a lot of enthusiasm, and there was langar, kirtan on Lodi day in this, where people of these 3 villages got together for the celebration. किसी ने नहीं देखा कि एक लड़की कोने में पड़ी हुई है बेहोश, and she remained unconscious through 2 gang rapes. So 13th evening को लोहड़ी की सेलिब्रेशन के बाद सांजी राम अपने बेटे को बोलता है कि अब चलो इसको अब मार डालो, हमारा काम हो गया, उसकी बॉडी कहीं फेंक दो। तो विशाल, दीपक खजूरिया और शुभम उस लड़की को जंगल ले जाते हैं। Khajuria says, that special police officer says, he wants to rape her before killing her. So he rapes her, after which Shubham also rapes the girl. So ये second rape होता है। अब रेप कर दिया, फिर उसको मर्डर करना है, क्योंकि सांजी राम ने कहा अब इसका टाइम तमाम हो गया। तो वो भी चुन्नी के साथ उसका मर्डर। I mean, the charge sheet makes such a hideously absurd description of how they killed her. चुन्नी के साथ गला घूंटते हैं, फिर पत्थर से फोड़ते हैं, फिर वो भी उसको वहीं बिल्कुल अपने घरों के पीछे ही छोड़ देते हैं, रसाना गांव में। नहीं, वो नहीं छोड़ते, सॉरी, ये वापस ले आते हैं मंदिर में कि उसको समझ नहीं आती इस बॉडी को क्या करें। सो दे ब्रिंग हर बैक टू द टेम्पल आफ्टर रेपिंग हर एंड आफ्टर किलिंग हर। नेक्स्ट डे इज़ मकर संक्रांति, विच इज़ ऑल्सो सेलिब्रेटेड इन दिस, एंड ऑल द पीपल हु केम टू टेस्टिफाई, सब तीनों गांव के लोगों ने बताया कि मकर संक्रांति वहाँ सेलिब्रेट हुई थी, भजन हुए, कीर्तन हुए। ये लड़की की डेड बॉडी पड़ी है, किसी को बदबू नहीं आ रही, किसी को दिखती नहीं लड़की, ये तो कहानी बताते हैं। और जनवरी 15 को सांजी राम कहता है कि अब इस लड़की को फेंकाओ जंगल में। अच्छा, जंगल में 8 लोग इन्वॉल्व हैं, उसमें 2 पुलिस ऑफिसर हैं, 2 स्पेशल पुलिस ऑफिसर हैं। इनको ये भी अकल नहीं आती कि कहीं जाके 2-4 मील दूर गड्ढा खोदो, इसकी दफना दो, ना वहीं गांव के बिल्कुल पीछे छोड़ देते हैं, ताकि जल्दी से जल्दी पुलिस को खबर पहुंच सके कि हमने ही मारा है। तो जनवरी 15 को उसको फेंक देते हैं, जनवरी 17 को उसकी बॉडी मिलती है, बट द बॉडी शोज़ नो साइन ऑफ डिकम्पोजिशन, इट्स नॉट डिकम्पोज, इट्स नॉट। और जंगल में किसी डेड बॉडी को छोड़ोगे तो जानवर ही खा जाएंगे, कौवे, चीले, क्या क्या आ जाएंगे, but the body remained unharmed till January 17. The girl doesn't wake up. In all these days, she doesn't try to run away, nobody notices, she doesn't yell, she doesn't scream, her hands are not even tied. So what was she doing there? She was doing susu potty in the temple itself, nobody also noticed or cleaned. That's the kind of story. Now, also it turned out the parents are not real parents. I met them after a long chase up there पत्नी टॉप के पास. First they said हमारी अपनी बेटी है, और उसकी डेड बॉडी दिखा के उसके ऊपर नाटक करके रो के करोड़ों रुपया इनको डोनेशन में आ गया. हाय बेचारे पेरेंट्स, they have to be compensated, they have to fight this case, justice for this girl, etc. It turned out later on they admitted, ये वो कहता है, ये जो मोहम्मद यूसुफ, ये मेरी बेटी नहीं, मेरी अडॉप्टेड लड़की थी, मेरी बहन की बेटी थी. बट द मदर ऑफ द गर्ल नेवर शोड अप, बट 2 other फेक फादर्स डिड अपीयर कि हम हैं बायोलॉजिकल फादर. पुलिस नेवर डिड एनी DNA टेस्टिंग टू फाइंड आउट ये वाकई ही किसकी बेटी थी, इनकी रिश्तेदार थी भी कि नहीं थी. तो पेरेंट्स भी फेक. और जो ये फोटोग्राफ ग्लोबली फेमस हुई, इट्स वेरी नोटवर्दी. My research again showed, and they admitted, the parents admitted when I met them, लाइफ में इस लड़की की केवल एक फ़ोटो ली गई, वो जनवरी 8 को शाम को या दोपहर को. नो अदर फोटोज. ऐसे कोई और फ़ोटो नहीं है? बोले नहीं, एक ही फ़ोटो है. कैसे खींची? उसका भाई बोलता है, जो फेक ब्रदर, कि मुझे किसी ने कैमरा, स्मार्ट कैमरा दिया था, उससे मैंने खींची. उसने मुझे कहा। उसके बाद कोई और फ़ोटो नहीं, उसके पास 2 फ़ोटो थी। एक मैंने उसके कैमरा पे देखी, वो एक फायर पे, लकड़ी की चूल्हे पे रोटी बना रही है, बड़े बड़े थेपले। दैट दे नेवर दिस थिंग। ओनली 1 photo is taken which is then made globally famous. So I asked them, और फ़ोटो क्यों नहीं है? तो बोले हम मुस्लिम्स में लड़कियों की फ़ोटो नहीं खींचते। तो इसका क्या मतलब? ज़िंदगी में एक ही फ़ोटो खींची जाए और उसको ग्लोबली फेमस किया जाए against the provisions of the law. So parents of the girl have also told so many lies. I have pointed to each one of their many lies. They told about themselves, their own age, वो भी झूठ बोलते हैं, लड़की की एज वो भी झूठ बोलते हैं, किसकी बेटी है वो भी झूठ बोलते हैं. It's just full of contradictions and lies, their statements, but the judge paid no attention to the easy to blast lies. Also it's very important, कभी भी लड़की कोई या बच्चा खोता है, हर अखबार में आ जाते हैं ऐसे सर्च फॉर मिसिंग, लुक आउट नोटिस. Do you know that the lookout notice for this girl was issued on January 18, the day after her dead body was found? 7 दिन तक जब वो गायब है तब कोई लुकआउट नोटिस नहीं है, कोई टीवी चैनल, लोकल टीवी चैनल, अखबार में कोई खबर नहीं आती. पर जैसे ही लड़की की डेड बॉडी मिलती है, एक हजूम आ जाता है बकरवाल मुस्लिम्स का, नेशनल हाईवे को ब्लॉक करता है. दे टेक आउट द डेड बॉडी from the ambulance after the postmortem, hold the शाहीन बाग के जैसे बिल्कुल नेशनल हाईवे को ब्लॉक करके रखते हैं. सारा ट्रैफिक डिसरप्ट होता है इस बॉर्डर स्टेट का. और जस्टिस फॉर दिस गर्ल उसके साथ उसी दिन से नाम करते हैं, सांजी राम, दीपक खजूरिया, इन्होंने रेप किया, इनको फांसी लगाओ. कोई उसकी बॉडी पर तो लिखा नहीं था कि सांजी राम ने रेप किया, इनको कैसे पता चल गया? और इससे पहले क्यों नहीं पुलिस के पास गए कभी कि कुछ करो? All the protests broke out only after a dead body was found. Finally, the post-mortem report does not support the charge of rape. बहुत खुल के मोटे अक्षरों में कैपिटल लेटर्स में लिखा है, no spermatozoa were detected on exhibit. मतलब लड़की की बॉडी पे कोई स्पर्म नहीं, उसके कपड़ों पे कोई स्पर्म नहीं, कहीं इंटरनल ऑर्गन्स में, वेजाइना में स्पर्म नहीं. जब स्पर्म नहीं मिला तो इसका मतलब रेप तो नहीं हुआ, तो गैंग रेप का सवाल नहीं उठता. डू यू अंडरस्टैंड माई हिंदी? यस? ओके. हाउ कैन शी बी गैंग रेप्ड इफ देयर इज नो? ऑल्सो द पोस्टमार्टम डज नॉट मेंशन एनी इंजरी टू हर इंटरनल ऑर्गन्स. गैंग रेप अगर छोटी बच्ची का होता है तो इंटरनल इंजरी कुछ तो होगा. नो मेंशन ऑफ एनी सच internal injuries. More importantly, they said she was strangled to death, दुपट्टा के साथ, गला घोटा. कोई भी जो मेडिकल फोरेंसिक साइंस जानता है उसको मालूम है कि अगर किसी का गला घोट के दुपट्टे से या हाथ से, तो गले में आपको साइंस दिखेंगे, ब्लड क्लॉटिंग हो जाती है अगर डेथ हुई है उससे. द पोस्टमार्टम डज नॉट मेंशन एनी लिगेचर साइंस, कुछ नहीं है. फिर उसके अलावा जो पत्थर उसके सर पे मारा, कि बड़ा पत्थर लेके उसके सर पे मारा इन लोगों ने जिन गैंग रेप करने के बाद, द पोस्टमार्टम डज नॉट रिकॉर्ड एनी इंजरी, इवन अ हेयर लाइन फ्रैक्चर टू अ स्कल और अ फोरहेड, नॉट अ ड्रॉप ऑफ ब्लड. द ओनली इंजरीज दैट द पोस्टमार्टम रिकॉर्ड्स आर एब्रेशंस मार्क ओवर राइट साइड ऑफ द फेस, टंग इज प्रोट्रूडेड, आइज कंजेस्टेड, और यहाँ पे abrasions over right forearm and also behind the ear and one abrasion on the thigh. Now this does not tie up with the theory of killed to death, killed by being hit on the stone after being strangled to death. पोस्टमार्टम में रेप का भी कोई मेंशन नहीं है. 2 पोस्टमार्टम रिपोर्ट्स हैं, एक नहीं है. बड़ी ओवर राइटिंग है, बहुत कुछ उसमें भी म्यूचुअली कॉन्ट्रोडिक्टरी बातें हैं. वो डिटेल में अगर आप पढ़ेंगे तो मैंने एक पूरा चैप्टर पोस्टमार्टम रिपोर्ट पर लिखा है और मैनी कॉन्ट्रडिक्शंस उसमें क्या क्या है, परंतु ना जज देखता है ना किसी मीडिया पर्सन ने देखा. कैन यू इमेजिन? ग्लोबल मीडिया कॉल्ड हर विक्टिम ऑफ गैंग रेप विदाउट रीडिंग द पोस्टमार्टम रिपोर्ट. दिस इज़ द लेवल ऑफ, what shall I say, laziness or bikawness. Young people, young lawyers, journalists, activists need to be trained in how to investigate in a foolproof manner. And I can say with confidence that my book has been vetted by several senior lawyers, and all of them say that if any judge looks at the evidence you have presented based on police own records, there is no way that these people can be convicted. Dusra, finally the case gets blasted because Vishal Jangotra, who was in Muzaffarnagar near Meerut, he had to be acquitted because CCTV footage of his being in exam hall was there, but the police hid it from the judge. But CCTV footage of his withdrawing cash from 2 different ATMs was secured by a ZTV journalist who played it on ZTV prime time. तो वो तो झुटला नहीं सकते थे क्योंकि ZTV ने वो चला दिया कि उस दिन तो वो मुजफ्फरनगर में था, वो था ही नहीं रसाना में, वो था ही नहीं जम्मू में, hundreds of miles away, and the police had implicated him. The judge would not believe the college principal. The story was इसने लाखों रुपया दे के वाइस चांसलर को ब्राइब किया, प्रिंसिपल को ब्राइब किया, अब 3-4 लड़कों को ब्राइब करके कहा तुम मेरा इम्तिहान लिख देना, मैं रेप करने जा रहा हूँ. और ऐसा बच्चा जिसके बैंक में उस दिन 500 रुपये भी नहीं थे, वो लाखों रुपया पता नहीं कहाँ से मतलब वो ATM में निकालने गया था, 1000 रुपया नहीं मिला और फिर उसने फ़ोन करके घर कहा तो बहन ने अपने अकाउंट में 1000 रुपया डाला अगले दिन, तो वो उसने निकाला. इतने गरीब परिवार का बच्चा लाखों रुपया देके केवल एक रेप करने के लिए जाता है, ये कहा गया. बट ही हैड टू बी एक्विटेड. नाउ सिंस ही वॉज प्रेजेंटेड एज वन ऑफ द मेन एक्यूज्ड, जब ये दिख गया जज को कि ये तो वहाँ था ही नहीं, पुलिस झूठ बोली है, तो एक्चुअली सारा केस कोलैप्स होता है. क्रिमिनल केस में यू हैव टू प्रूव the guilt beyond reasonable doubt. Stringent criteria होने चाहिए. यहाँ तो डाउट ही डाउट है. और जैसा मैंने कहा, टॉर्चर की हुई जो कन्फेशन के अलावा कोई एविडेंस है ही नहीं इनके पास. जो एविडेंस इन्होंने पेश किए वो सब गलत एविडेंस हैं जो बताते हैं कि पुलिस झूठ बोल रही है. इसके बाद री इन्वेस्टिगेशन होनी चाहिए थी, बट दैट्स नॉट व्हाट हैपेंड बिकॉज द जज वाज हाईली कॉम्प्रोमाइज्ड. Now, after the 2019 legally unsustainable judgment by Pathankot judge, everybody has appealed to the High Court कि ये गलत हुआ हमारे साथ. But strangely enough, the girl from कथुआ, इसके पिता ने अपील डाली है कि जिनको लाइफ सेंटेंस मिला है, सांजीराम को या दीपक खजूरिया को या जिसको 5 साल की सज़ा मिली है पुलिस को कि डिस्ट्रॉइंग एविडेंस के लिए, इन सबको डेथ पेनल्टी होनी चाहिए. और सबसे दुख की बात यह है कि JNK की सरकार सपोर्ट कर रही है, जैसे उस वक़्त भी सपोर्ट किया महबूबा मुफ्ती के झूठों को, अभी भी. इट्स रियली ट्रैजिक. आई कांट बिलीव इट. आई डोंट नो हाउ टू मेक सेंस ऑफ इट. एंड दोज ऑफ यू हु हैव एक्सेस टू द पार्टी, प्लीज़ कम्युनिकेट. बहुत हो गया अन्याय. हाई कोर्ट में तो कम से कम इनके साथ न्याय होने दो. एंड एटलीस्ट हम तो कोशिश कर रहे हैं इनको अच्छे वकील मिले, क्योंकि अभी तक इनको अच्छे वकील भी नहीं मिले जिन्होंने केस ढंग से लड़ा हो. तो केस अभी हाई कोर्ट पंजाब और हरियाणा में है. और कथुआ हिंदूज लिव इन टेरर. फाइनल देखिए, रसाना विलेज का ये छोटा सा वीडियो है जिसमें सांजीराम का बेटा बताता है, ये दिखा रहा है पीछे के गांव के पीछे इनके खेत थे. अब डर के वहाँ कोई खेती ही नहीं कर रहा, अब वो जंगल बन गए हैं इनके खेत. खेती करना बंद कर दिया है क्योंकि डर से. नाउ द पॉइंट आई एम मेकिंग इज, ओह सॉरी, द पॉइंट दैट आई एम ट्राइंग टू मेक इज, कोई मुस्लिम वहाँ से उठा नहीं, हिंदुओं को पलायन करना पड़ा, हिंदुओं को अपनी खेती तक छोड़नी पड़ी. गाँव के जहाँ उनके खेत थे पीछे, वहाँ जाने तक में डर रहे हैं. बहुत से नौजवान गांव छोड़ के जा चुके हैं अपने अपने कथुआ डिस्ट्रिक्ट से, बिकॉज दे आर लिविंग इन टेरर. एंड आई कंक्लूड विद माई फाइनल स्टेटमेंट, टू नैब द रियल किलर्स, government needs to order a fresh investigation into the case through NIA since it has national security implications. ये डेमोग्राफिक इन्वेजन का एक हिस्सा है, ये इस लड़की का मर्डर। गवर्नमेंट नीड्स टू प्रोब महबूबा मुफ्ती हु इज़ अ की प्लेयर इन दिस कॉन्स्पिरेसी एज इन शोपियन केस। शोपियन केस का याद होगा, तब भी इसने 2 महिलाओं को इन्होंने खुद मरवाया। वहाँ पे भी कहा कि फौजियों ने रेप किया है, और अभी निकल के सीबीआई प्रोब से आया, तभी आ गया था, उस वक़्त अब्दुल्ला सरकार थी, उन्होंने सीबीआई को हैंड किया। इट केम आउट दैट पीडीपी एंड हुर्रियत वर इन्वॉल्व इन टेलिंग दीज 2 डॉक्टर्स, जिन्होंने अपना वेजाइनल स्वॉब लगा के ये कहा कि रेप हुआ है। यहाँ तक इन्होंने बेईमानी की और उन फौजियों की ज़िंदगी तबाह हो गई। अब इन डॉक्टर्स को इतने साल बाद डिसमिस किया, पर उनको तो फांसी लगनी चाहिए। And again, Mehbooba was one of the key players in that Shopian fake rape and murder case, and probed Talib Hussain, who may well have a hand in the murder, and probed the fake parents of the girl from Kathua, who have been the biggest beneficiaries of this sinister plot.